Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Arsaholics podcast. This isn't Mize. It's normally Mize. He hasn't just started sounding better. This is Raj. And there's a reason I'm presenting today. Looking worse. Much less hair, sadly. There's a reason he's not presenting today, and I am. It's because I didn't see the game against Chelsea. I feel quite fortunate, maybe in some ways, not to have seen the game against Chelsea. I was unfortunately at a wedding, but Aaron and Mize were both there, and they're going to talk us through the experience, which probably had its ups and a lot of downs. But guys, how are you guys doing?
Good, mate. Good.
Yeah. This is weird, isn't it?
I know. How do you feel, mate?
Different. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Oh, yeah, less pressure. Handbrake off.
Excellent. Yeah, exactly. Now you can go. You can say how you really feel now.
Exactly.
You don't have to be the Gary Lineker.
No filter. No filter.
Exactly. And guys, I know a lot of people have asked us about. There are 4 Arsaholics, right? That's how we've advertised. But quite often, you're only getting 3 of us. So if just firstly, apologies, but Nero is still very much an arsaholic. At the moment, he's very busy with life. He's got work, is very busy. He's renovating his house, but he is an arsaholic. And when that stuff clears up, we hope very much, and we think very much he will be back in the fold. But for now, you'll have to make do with the 3 of us. Nero was actually at the game as well. So
he's still more qualified to be here than you are, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm just the guy who tries hard. But let's talk about. Well, let's get into it, guys, because it's the first home game of the season. It's the first. Obviously, we were able to go to the Brighton game at the end of last season, but this was the first game at full capacity for God knows how long. I mean, I'd already accepted I wasn't going to be able to go, but how did you guys feel about getting to go to our first proper home game back?
Yeah, it was really good. After Friday, I think. Well, personally, I was like, oh, it's going to be a long season, doom and gloom. But we had a week, over a week, right? 9 days. And then we had the new signings. And come Sunday morning, I was really up for it again. Like the weather was actually looking like it might be quite good. And, we met up early to, have a few drinks and some food. And it was really good. You'd go there and because the club told everyone to be there quite early as well, it seemed like even by kickoff was at 4:30, and even by 2, the streets were packed, and it was starting to get quite lively, and just the whole experience of just doing that match day routine, figuring out the quickest way to get to the ground, and then getting some food and some drinks, and talking about the game, talking about the season. Although there was this undercurrent of today is going to be a tough game. I think the atmosphere before the game was really good. And then when we went into the ground, like I said, because everyone was there early, it was buzzing. It was really good. It was really loud. Everyone was super up for it. You wouldn't have thought that, compared, when you go on Twitter, it seems like we're in a crisis. You wouldn't have thought we were in a crisis when you walked into that ground before the game. And even during kickoff, it was just really good. I was so happy to be back. And it just goes to show that there is nothing like going to a game in the flesh, and the experience of going to a game is so crucial to what I associate with Arsenal. And I'm not saying that, Arsenal have loads of fans all over the world, and I'm not saying I'm a better fan than anyone else anywhere all over the world. But for me, that experience is just so good and so powerful, and that I missed it.
That's part of the reason, the Arsaholics podcast has been partly about trying to bring the match day experience to people. We've always said we're very lucky to be able to be season ticket holders. So, I guess you guys did your usual Highbury and Islington, getting off there. Where did you guys go to drink first?
Yeah, so we, I was echo everything Aaron had said, really. So a few days before the game, probably about Monday, Tuesday, I set up a separate WhatsApp group without you, Raj. Man, sorry. No, just because you're on holiday and we didn't want to be pestering you with messages about what time you're meeting up and what time's the train pulling in and all that. So anyway, we booked a table at Bird.
What?
About 4 hours before. So we got to watch the United game. So we went to Bird. Obviously, they're good chicken and chips, and you look really sad, man.
I'm upset about the WhatsApp group.
I didn't know about this. I didn't know about this lunch date.
It was a temporary one. That group will get closed down, so don't worry. Yeah. So we went to bed. Yeah, like Aaron said, had a few beers there, and we were thinking, we were contemplating, should we go from Bird to like Horatio? The Rocket was closed though, which is obviously one of our other normal places we go to, but because it was closed, we thought, well, other pubs are obviously going to be even more rammed than normal. I think it was about 2:30. No, it was about 3:00 by the time we left. So we thought we'll just go straight to the ground. But it took absolutely ages to get in. So they've changed not to bore everyone who kind of probably isn't interested in this, but I guess some people might be. They've changed, I don't know if it's just for this one game, but they've changed the security checkpoint. So obviously normally they do it at the turnstile, but they were doing it at the top of the stairs as you go past the armory. So the queue was backed up from the top of the stairs going down. So we had a bit of time there. But then we got straight into the ground pretty quickly. But yeah, the queue for beers was mental inside the concourse. It was really busy, but it lent itself well to the overall atmosphere. As Aaron had said, that atmosphere was really, really good. Everyone was pretty buoyant, singing. Beers were getting chucked around. So it was good. It was good up until
the one downside though is they have put the price of drinks up to £6.20 a beer, which is, that's ridiculous, isn't it? £6.20. I think that's like Wembley is like something even more ridiculous, like £7 or something. But come on, £6.20 is
it's a lot.
It's a lot. So they need to do something about that. And I do feel like the stadium itself is looking a bit run down now. Like you look outside. I know the club have said that they're going to do something about the decor outside of like the covering on the stadium when they have the legends. That's all looking faded. The concourse itself, they didn't have any of the games on and stuff like that, and like they could have shown the Man United game that was on before. The seats, when you go to your seats, like, not that I don't know where I'm sitting because I'm sitting in the same space for a while now, but even the seat numbers are all faded and stuff like that. So I do think there is a lot of work to be done with the stadium experience itself, and the club are not really pulling their finger out to do much, but the whole fan experience itself is very good, and I have missed that a lot.
I think they're waiting to get rid of William so they can afford to pay for some of these
stadium
renovations. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say raising the price of beer. Maybe that's what they needed to do. Yeah. But I don't know how much that is fueled by the club and how much of it is the supplier itself. And it's an interesting one. But just going back to kind of the build up. Whilst you guys were drinking, whether it was the bird or at the stadium. Obviously, one of the fun things about the pre-game experience is when the lineup comes out, and discussing that lineup when it filters around whatever drinking area you are. So what did you guys think when the lineup came out an hour before the game? A few surprises in there, I guess. There was some murmurings on Twitter around Ben White and rumors that he had COVID. And sort of, there were obviously question marks around who was going to start up front, given Ober and Lacker's issues last week, which we now know is COVID related. So what did you guys think anyway, when you guys saw the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a pretty expected lineup, aside from probably one position, but I think Ben White, it was probably more than rumors. It was practically confirmed, not by the club, obviously, by pretty good sources, that he had COVID, so he was going to miss out. I think the main surprise was Cedric at right back, especially in such a big game. I'm not sure what the reasons for that selection was. I mean, I don't know if Chambers, don't think he had a particularly bad game compared to anyone else against Brentford, so I'm not sure if he was dropped or there was a reason why tactically Cedric was preferred, but that was a bit of a surprise. I kind of expected Aubameyang to come straight in because I thought, you saw how much Balogun struggled, and it was almost like, again, being such a big game, you need to just play your tried and tested seasoned striker, even if he's only 60, 70% fit in terms of, he's obviously been down with COVID. But I guess that wasn't the case, and I wasn't all that optimistic about Martinelli through the middle because I don't think he's really ever convinced through the middle yet. Aside from that, I think it's a pretty much expected lineup. Lukonga starting again, which I think was the right decision. He was probably our best player against Brentford, and I think at the moment, without Ødegaard, without Aubameyang, without Lacazette, the front four practically picks itself.
I think this is actually going to be the recurring theme of this podcast, I think, which is that 11 was probably the best we could have put out, but it was so far off our strong our strongest 11 because of injuries, because of COVID, because of whatever else is going on. And as annoyed as I want to get, and we'll talk about this in much more depth shortly, as annoyed as I want to get about the result and the performance, you can't hide away from the fact that that was 5, maybe 6 players away from our strongest 11. And then you look at the Chelsea lineup, and that was by far probably their strongest 11. I don't know who was missing. Pulisic was out, maybe. So yeah, like I say, like, what would I have done differently? Like, you take out Chambers, you put Cedric in. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference in terms of overall quality. Maybe you get Cedric's a better defender, but Chambers is better going forward. The centre backs were the only 2 that we had left, and it's just absolutely bonkers that. And then even the players that we did play, like Saka, probably wasn't fully fit after coming back late from the Euros. He came off early. And then Martinelli, has had a week of pre-season with us or so. So the squad is, I don't know if it's bad luck, bad preparation. I was thinking to myself, like, the only reason Partey is out is because he got injured playing a meaningless friendly against Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
Now, why are we playing Chelsea in a pre-season friendly for no reason, really? Like, we could have just had did we kind of bring that on upon ourselves? It was, I wasn't unhappy. It was more just reluctant acceptance that this is the best that we could do. And it's, it's already going to be a tough game, and we've just made it 10 times harder for ourselves. Yeah.
Just to add to that, the only thing I guess that we contemplated, I think we talked about it with Nero as well before the game, Aaron, and was he going to go 3 at the back?
Oh yeah,
which obviously he decided not to, but that was a potential avenue he could have gone down.
Do you think he would have done it if Ben White was fit?
No.
You think it was
yesterday? No.
So I reckon because
you wouldn't need Ben White to be fit to play a back 3 when you've got Tierney that can play there.
But more just the fact that Ben White is potentially stronger in a back 3. That's his kind of preferred role. I don't know. I know Arteta did hint about it in his post-match press conference, was that they did say they explored all the options and decided to go for this. So they definitely considered it. How serious a consideration it was, I don't know. But who knows if that would have made a difference. So we could have been spending the whole of the 90 minutes continuously defending, and we probably still would have lost anyway.
Imagine they thought about it long and hard, given that we beat Chelsea playing a back 3 at Stamford Bridge at the end, right? And I wonder if it's a case where Arteta just thought, this early on in the season, this is how I want to play. I'm at home. This is what I want to do. And players are going to have to get used to coming in and out of the side because of injuries. And I think sometimes, we want to point the finger. It's natural. It's human nature to want to point the finger at something. But when we look at the injuries and stuff, there's nothing that seems to be that consistent. We've had, like you mentioned, Aaron, and Partey get injured, in the middle of a game. We've had people out with COVID. We've had people who are getting injured in training. People getting injured on international duty. So it's hard. Like, I don't want to play the violin, and maybe we can go into this a little bit later when we talk about, where we are right now and how do we judge this team. But, all these things considered, when you guys got in the stadium and you kick off, I imagine there was a big, everyone was really happy to be in the stands. What did you guys feel like the fans, how did the fans get behind the team? Did they get behind the team from the start? Were they optimistic?
Yeah, I think 100%.
I don't know about being optimistic. Sorry, Aaron.
Maybe not optimistic. Like, I don't think there was a belief that we were going to win as such, but I don't think you can accuse the fans of being negative, because it was really, really good for the first 10 minutes.
They did kick off.
I don't know how it sounded off on TV. Maybe, sometimes on TV it sounds really quiet, but
when the players came out, I watched a bit back when I got back in last night. When the players came out, it was really, like, you could hear it. Like you said, often it is quiet, but you could really hear the crowd when the players came out, because Chelsea came out first, didn't they? So it was obviously boos, and then when the Arsenal players came out, it was very, very loud. You could hear Gary Neville and I think it was Martin Tyler. You were struggling to hear them. It was that loud. So
it was good. It was very good.
And what was the reaction to when Saka's name was called out? How was the crowd then?
Yeah, it was loud, but actually, like Miles was saying, because it was loud already, it didn't go up a level. I did notice like he did like it did go up a little bit, but it wasn't like it erupted because actually, the atmosphere was buzzing at that point, and even like they read out everyone's name, like Xhaka got cheers, everyone got cheers. Like new signings obviously got like Ramsdale was on the bench, I think he got a cheer. It was very, very positive. You wouldn't at that moment, if you walked in, you wouldn't have felt like this is a club, undergoing a completely like a mini crisis, if you will.
But I think, I mean, mate, at the end of the day, right, it's the first time we've been back properly in however long, year and a half. I think no matter the opposition, it helped that it was Chelsea and it was a big, big game, London derby, category A, whatever. I think whoever we would have been facing, it probably would have been I personally think it would have been a pretty raucous atmosphere, especially a pre-match and that kickoff. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the Chelsea fans were surprisingly quiet given.
I don't think they're generally that good. Like, I don't know. As away fans,
I was expecting like 90 minutes of like Champions of Europe. You'll never sing that or something like that. But I don't think they sang that song once. And yeah, like we've seen loads of away fans come to Arsenal and like make a racket. And I thought Chelsea coming in, having just won the Champions League, like they piped up at the end, obviously, but they were surprisingly quiet.
We talk about the key, I suppose the big key incident that happened first is probably what many feared would happen when you looked at the lineup. You looked at maybe, Holding and Mari, potentially, our second choice centre-backs up against a huge new signing for Chelsea, tried and tested Premier League striker, one of the best in Europe, Lukaku. And then I the first update I had of the game was seeing Lukaku score on 14 minutes. Do you want to talk us through that? I mean, what went wrong there?
I'll tell you what I can remember of it. So for context, we sit behind the North Bank, which is the goal that Chelsea were attacking in the first half. So we had a really good view of both goals, actually. And I remember Lukaku getting the ball just outside the box. And I think it was Marie going towards him. And he just didn't. I remember thinking, just foul him, because if you let him turn, he's going to do something. And he didn't. He got turned. And you could just see Reece James out wide in acres of space. And the minute he was in, all I was hoping was, if you find whoever it is in the box, we're dead. And Reece James is very, very good and very clinical when he's in the box. And he just laid it on a plate. And at that point, you're looking towards like the cross. You're not even looking to see who's in the box. And when he crosses it in, you're just like, please don't let Lukaku be on the end of that. Please don't let Lukaku be on the end of that. Split second later, he's tapped it in the back of the net. And you're just like, I was like, why do Arsenal always let the narrative win? Like last week, it was, Brentford's first game in the Premier League. Brentford will be up for it. This is Lukaku's first game. And he's just like architected a really good goal. And so that was what I was thinking first. That was my view of it. And then I was just like, I can imagine what Sky are saying. I can imagine what social media are saying. And, we just have ourselves to blame because we got cut open.
I think, I was just going to say, mate, just to add to that. I mean, the gulf between Lukaku and our two centre-backs, I think both are uncapped. And Marie was cost however much he cost, 5 million quid, whatever it was. Holding cost what he cost. And these guys are probably say substandard, if we're being brutally honest, right? They're not, they're not going to be able to compete with a player like Lukaku. And that just showed in the first goal. It showed in the whole of the first half and probably the whole game, to be honest, but it definitely showed for that first goal. The most impressive thing from Lukaku, if you're a Chelsea fan, and the most disappointing thing if you're an Arsenal fan, not just two things. One is the amount of space that Reece James was left in, obviously. The other thing, if you watch what Lukaku does after he lays off the ball, is his movement towards goal. He just completely bullies Marie. Like he just pushes him off the ball. Like, I don't know, bullies is probably the right word. Like they're both going towards a goal, and Lukaku's just the one who wants it more. He's stronger.
Does Marie fall over or something?
No,
like
Lukaku just bullies him. Like he just shoulder, whatever it was. He just pushes him away from him, and Murray just goes down. But no one appeals for anything. It wasn't a foul.
No, I didn't think it was a foul. But I was wondering if he slipped, but I didn't realize that Lukaku had actually.
I don't think so.
Barged past him. Okay.
I think it's very intentional from Lukaku, and he just got himself into the right position, timed the run perfectly, and the ball was very, very good as well. Because I guess it's the kind of ball that Leno might intercept, but I think Reece James plays it really well between sort of just in front of the goalkeeper, but right into Lukaku's path. And yeah, like you said, Aaron, and he doesn't have to do anything. He just runs onto it and puts it away.
So I guess a question for you guys, Lukaku is arguably the most physically imposing centre forward in the world right now. And it sounds like he used those qualities in an amazing way. Would you guys have been surprised if the same thing happened if Gabriel and White were playing?
When you say surprised, what do you mean?
Right. So I guess where I'm going with this is, to a certain extent, we could probably turn around now and say, you've got one of the best strikers in the world playing against our backup centre-backs. Okay, it's a shame. It's going to happen. Something like this is going to happen. Lukaku's going to do that to plenty of other teams. But, one of our, I suppose, a saving grace for us is we can perhaps turn around and go, okay, well, they're probably not our best two centre-halves. But do we actually think our best two centre-halves are capable of dealing with a world-class striker like Lukaku in a better way?
I mean, Lukaku on his day can be one of the best strikers in the world, or currently in Europe. Right, we've seen that he gets goals wherever he goes, but I do expect Gabriel to just be a bit more physically imposing, and he does seem to do a good job at just holding up some of these better strikers.
Yeah,
but if that happened and it was Gabriel and Ben White, I would have said, yeah, that's like, well done, Lukaku, you've done well there. But it almost felt to me like we were more worried, like just having Lukaku there just absolutely terrified our defenders. And me and Myers were having a discussion about this after the game of Kieran Tierney and his positioning for that goal and the second goal as well, which was, I think Myers felt that Tierney could have done better and that he was defensively suspect. I think he was dragged in too much, and maybe he probably shouldn't have been dragged in, but A, he wasn't really getting any protection. B, the way Lukaku and I think it was Mason Mount were set up just meant that he got dragged in anyway. And he had to almost compensate because he wasn't sure if Murray would handle Lukaku. He had to come in just to cover for the fact that Lukaku was going to beat Murray. Right. But I think like put it this way, if that was Timo Werner, I don't think Kieran Tierney's as worried about Murray getting beaten and him having to compensate. I think he.
Yeah. I was just going to say, mate, no, I mean, yeah, like you said, we had this discussion. My kind of annoyance was more at the second goal. Obviously, that both goals were kind of bad from a defensive perspective. My annoyance at Kieran Tierney was more from the second goal, where I don't think there's any danger for him. There's no reason for him to come inside as much as he does, having seen what's happened on the first goal and seeing it's Reece James who's kind of exposed the space on that side. He does the same thing again. And for the second goal, from what I can remember, again, I've only probably seen one replay on Twitter, but I can't remember there being much danger in the middle, apart from Lukaku. But then you're playing, they're playing one up top versus two of our centre-backs. We should be okay. And I think it's a bit naive. And I've said this possibly to you guys separately or possibly to other mates, but Tierney's clearly one of our best players, and he's obviously a massive attacking threat and a big part of our tactic going forward in terms of attacking. But I do think positionally he's got a lot to improve on, and I think that was just shown. Shown from clearly from the second goal, because he's nowhere to be seen, and he didn't get much protection because that kept happening over and over again in the first half. But for that second goal, I mean, Reece James is in acres and acres of space, and it was almost just like I think it was like a ball watching moment, or maybe he was coming inside to protect Murray and holding a bit more, but he shouldn't. I don't know. I would like to think. I don't know why. I'm not sure if it's a decision he's taken to do that, or Arteta's told him to do it, or Murray's called him over. I'm not really sure, but whatever the reason was, it was just the wrong. There was no. So the main issue I've got is, along with Tierney kind of being a bit naive there, is that no one's told him. So after the first goal and after it happening, no one's told him, or Arteta, whoever, or the coaches haven't adjusted the plan to identify that problem and adjusted the plan to counter it or to stop it. And it just kept happening over and over again.
Especially where we sit, right? So we sit behind that goal on that side of the pitch. So all we could see for that first half was just Reece James bombing up and down in acres of space. And it could have happened about 3 or 4 times. And, that was like, if we can see it, we're like, 2 idiots in the ground. Like, what is the really qualified football manager and the team? Like, why are they not doing anything about it? And it was constant. And it was so easy, that second goal, to find Reece James, although it was a very good finish, the way he put it away. I think he put it in like almost top corner, I think. I'm not sure. He just
it was good
really
finish.
Finished it really well. And you could see it. You've been warned once with the goal. It happened again once where he got in, and he got in behind a few times before that. And it just kept happening. And then for whatever reason, it was, Tierney was just in no man's land so many times. And I watched him. There was once where he got really annoyed by it. I can't remember who he got annoyed by, but he was just shouting to himself, like, what the hell's going on? And at that point, I think someone should say, well, either Xhaka come over and help him or Saka come back and help him, because it was relentless and we weren't doing anything about it. And that was why I was really annoyed for that second goal, because it can happen once, learn from your mistake, or someone take charge of that situation and say, right, that's not going to happen again.
Well, I was just going to say, when Chelsea are a team that attack with their wing backs, it's part of their strategy. But I think when you get in a situation where you're 2-0 down and the right back has an assist and he has a goal, then it's a bad day for the defending left back. You kind of have to look at him. But you just touched on something, that at the same time, when you're playing against a team which are attacking through their fullbacks a lot, you imagine that your left back's going to need a lot of help. So you touched on Saka there. Saka is playing as a left winger. Do you think he did enough during that first half to help Tierney or just help that left-hand side defensively overall?
Not in the first half. It looked like we did something at halftime to change it a bit. And I'm not really sure what it is, and I haven't watched the game back, but certainly at halftime, Reece James stopped getting that space. Now, you could say that's because Chelsea might have just chilled out and said, we're going to sit on this 2-0 win because we know we're good enough to hold this. But it looked like Xhaka was playing in a slightly different position, but I don't know. But certainly after that first goal, for that next 15, 20 minutes, like, I would have expected a top defense to say, right, we're going to stop this happening again and not wait till halftime to stop it.
I think if you're Granit Xhaka, I think it was probably a tough job he had yesterday, because they've got a pretty strong central midfield as well. And he probably had he obviously does that job where when we have the ball, Tierney goes forward and he slots into that left back slot, into that, left back position, which he was doing yesterday. You could see it when we had the ball. But I think when we didn't have the ball, like you said, Aaron, and you got Mason Mount, you got Kovacic, you got Jorginho, all players that are very, very good on the ball. And I can imagine, he just had a very, very big job in his hands. So I probably wouldn't target too much kind of abuse at Xhaka for not covering on that side.
No, I don't think. I think it's abuse. It's more just, could the manager have done something to stop that second goal happening and reacted a bit earlier?
I mean, look, I think personally, if I'm being completely honest, I just think Tierney's just positionally really bad for the second goal. It did keep happening throughout the first half, but I attribute a lot of that down to Kieran Tierney's positioning. I just think he is either ball watching or he's just getting dragged inside because he feels like he needs to. I'm not sure what the reason is, but yeah, and I think Saka maybe could have done a little bit more. Maybe he's not 100% fit, or I'm not exactly sure, but that's not really like him though. I think Saka generally does cover quite a lot. So,
and he's someone who, he's someone who takes accountability, and we're 2-0 down. There's a penalty shout where Saka gets in the box. Did you guys? I know from where we sit, it probably would have been really hard to tell. And I imagine if you saw a player go down in the other area, you're going to claim for a penalty from the North Bank anyway, aren't you? But what did you guys think at the time? Did you truly think it was a penalty?
Yeah, I mean,
I couldn't tell.
You can't tell, but I guess you can sometimes go on the reaction of the crowd at the other end, like the clock end, or fans down the other end. There did seem to be a big appeal from the players, and it I personally thought he was just going to give it, because it just seemed to be one of those where Saka really appealed, other players appealed, everyone down the other end of the stadium was appealing, and then it obviously it went to VAR. We don't know what's happening when it goes to VAR when you're in the stadium. And I thought it might be one of those that gets given like post review, but I guess it'd have to be a complete stonewall penalty for it to be overturned from the on-field decision. But yeah, I mean, look, the replays. I don't know. What do you guys think? I thought it was.
Yeah, I saw the replay afterwards. Like the guy next to me pulled it up about 20 minutes later, and I was like, "This is
a new mate."
Yeah, well, he sat there last year as well.
Oh, did he? Say you're replacing me already.
Yeah, same guy. He doesn't come all the time, but
I know.
I was like, right, doesn't come all the time.
Oh, shut up.
You remember the first episode, Raj? You remember the first episode when we did the introductions? We were like 4 season ticket holders, and then you were like, "Oh yeah, when it's a category A game, mate."
No,
about 40 episodes. I got my comeback.
Hey, it was a category A game when you turned up.
That's true.
But okay, look, it's half time. We're 2-0 down. Both centre backs have yellow cards. We've had a penalty turned down. I mean, tell me a bit about the atmosphere going into the second half. I imagine it was a stark contrast to how it was at the beginning of the first half.
Yeah, I think at that point, all the atmosphere had been sucked out. And from then on, it was very, very, it was
flat, wasn't it?
It was very flat. It was, and that was it. That's all to say. No one really gave us a hope of getting back into the game. And because, I think I asked the question, I was like, well, who's on the bench? Who can we bring on after Aubameyang? And it was Balogun, and that's it.
Yeah, so the subs made, and Miles, what do you think of them? You had Oba came on for Saka, Tavares came on for Tierney, Balogun came on for Martinelli. It sounds like there are a couple of injuries there that might have. I mean, what do you think about those substitutions? Did they change the game in any way?
I think the Oba one did. He came on, he had a lot of energy. I think it was almost like he came on, he really wanted to, after the season he had last season, and a lot of kind of doubters making comments, whatever you want to call it, a lot of kind of criticism coming his way. He came on with a lot of energy. He was making the right kinds of runs. You could see that when when Chelsea were playing the ball around the back, he was really, really hunting the ball down. It came back to Mendy, and he was chasing Mendy down at full speed. So he was doing kind of all of the right things, but I think just on that specifically, I just don't think he really got a look in terms of any chances or really even trying to think of how many times he really touched the ball. And again, that just comes down to lack of kind of getting the ball into the right places in the final third. Like you said, the other two subs, I think they were enforced from what I saw. I haven't really read much about if they were injuries or not, but Tierney went down for a bit. I didn't even see Martinelli go down. I just saw him go off.
Cramp.
Was it? Okay.
But he's okay, but he just clearly not fit enough to last 90.
I would have liked to have seen Saka stay on. I mean, again, we don't know how fit he is post Euros, but he's the kind of player you want to keep on in a big game like this when you need some goals. But I guess, I don't know, is that Arteta saying the game's gone, but not worth risking him for another 20, 30 minutes? I'm not sure, but I mean, like Aaron said, what other subs has he got left to make? I don't know who. I can't remember who else was on the bench. Like, you got Elneny, not going to bring him on. Shouldn't bring him on. Reece Nelson, was he on the bench? Possibly. Maitland-Niles, Chambers, Bellerin. I'm not sure who else was on the bench. So very, very limited because of the injuries that we've got, and no Ødegaard at the moment.
All right, let's talk about that now as we think about conclusions here. We've lost 2-0 at home, champions of Europe. Chelsea are going to win a lot of games. We can talk about how good we think Chelsea are, but obviously Arteta has turned around at this point and he said, well, do you know what? I've got 7 or 8 first team players injured. And in fairness to him, you could probably say, like, I've got my spine that's been ripped out at the moment. I've got, no Ben White. I had no Gabriel. I had no Thomas Partey. I've signed Ødegaard, but he couldn't play. I didn't have Aubameyang, I didn't have a Lacazette. You can turn around and you can say all that. I mean, how much different do you guys think it would have been had we had a fully fit team? Would you think it's just too hard to say?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's impossible to say. The thing is, it's impossible not to look at this result in the context of last season and the 8th place finished and how we started last season, because the way this looks is like it's very familiar with how we started last season. And that's the real worry. And the fact that we didn't win against Brentford Or we lost against Brentford even, and this was a continuation. And it's the patterns of play. Like, there are deep, lingering questions about this manager in terms of how we play, how we build up, and all that. So that's where I remember, like, yesterday just watching, and I remember the last 10 minutes of the game, we did nothing. This was Arteta. Arteta should have been going for it, and I don't think we hardly touched the ball, and Chelsea were just so dominant. And fair play to Chelsea, because they were really, really dominant. And I think if they wanted to, they could have won 4 or 5-0 if they really gone for it. But I think they just chose to chill after 2-0. And that was it. It was just, what is the plan for us scoring a goal? Like, when you really want to go for it, what are you doing differently? And why do we look even worse when we're chasing? And why is it that when we go behind in 15 games we've gone behind, I don't think we've won once? So there are a lot of questions, and I am starting to get very concerned. But this whole caveat of, the 5 or 6 of our players are not there and not fit is a valid caveat. You say it's an excuse. It is an excuse. You take out 6 first-team players out of any of the teams except Man City or Chelsea, and they struggle. So you look at Liverpool, they lost, Van Dijk, and, they had defenders out throughout the season. They struggled. So we've had our 2 best centre-backs out, and we're struggling. That's no surprise. So, yeah, I almost, I really wish we didn't have this injury concern so we could fairly evaluate where we are as a team.
Yeah, it sounds to me, partly what we're saying is fine. Yes, it's a valid excuse to say that we had a number of first-team players injured. But what about the identity of this team and how we're playing? Because in theory, the identity and the ethos and the tactics and, whatever you want to call it, should be consistent, even if you've got the second string in the team. Are you starting to see anything with Arteta's side, or are we having the same questions that we had 6 months ago?
Yeah, probably the latter. I think, in terms of an identity, right, us as Arsenal fans of the age that we are, most of our Arsenal experience has been as a Wenger Arsenal, right? And that was a very clear identity in terms of how he wanted to play the game, how he wanted to score goals, how he wanted to attack, the type of players that he would bring into the team. Although that changed over the course of, the iterations of the team. But, we would go to the Emirates every week or every couple of weeks, and we knew what we were going to get, whether it was that kind of calamity Arsenal, even towards the end of the Wenger era, where, you couldn't predict what kind of, a game we were going to win or lose. But that we'd go gung-ho if we were 1 or 2-0 down in the last 10 or 15 minutes. And you knew the players that we had on the bench to throw on. And I think with this Arteta team, like kind of Aaron and kind of touched on it, like, I think even if we had, I think the one player that we probably missed the most, maybe 2, I'll probably say Thomas Partey, because I think he's massive for our central midfield. But again, Lukaku had a decent game, considering it's only his second Premier League game and how young he is. And Martin Odegaard. And there still seems to be, like we've said it probably every single time we've drawn or lost a game, and we've done 30, 40 episodes. We keep saying, the creativity, there's a problem in the final third. The final ball's not good enough. The creativity is not quite right. Does Odegaard fix that kind of problem? This tactic of, like, there's this weird tactic that is probably going to work because we're trying it so often in a game. Like, it's going to work here and there. But this tactic of, getting the ball out to Tierney and then him whipping in across, it's just, I can't really get my head around it, because you haven't really got, like, if you haven't got a recognized striker in your first 2 games, you're playing Balogun. Okay, Balogun is a recognized striker, but you know what I mean, right? It was his Premier League debut, and then Martinelli going through the middle. I'm not really sure that's the right kind of tactic that you want to go for. And it's obviously it's a very obvious tactic now that other teams are going to have seen us try. So I think it's just a bit all over the place. Like, I'm not really sure what the identity is. There's obviously this, like I said, this tactic of getting it wide to Tierney, but I don't think we've got the right personnel in the middle for that, unless you've got Aubameyang on the pitch or you've got Lacazette on the pitch. we're not creating any chances. Like even if you write off the Chelsea and the City game coming up, and you say, look, they're far better teams than us, champions of Europe, Premier League champions, they spend however much they spent, and you kind of make the excuses before you've even played them to say we're not going to be able to compete on the day. Okay, fine, but the Brentford game shouldn't have been like that, even if it was set up for them to win it, even if it was set up for them in terms of their first game in the Premier League and new stadium and all of that. I still think that we came out of that game looking like, I don't know what you like, disinterested is maybe the right term. Disinterested.
They were just confused. I don't think this team really. There was one chance in the second half where I think we were saying, Miles, where I think it was Pepe that got it on the edge of the box, and then instead of, or might have been Saka, I'm not sure. Instead of like playing a pass in the middle, he just went like out wide again or back inside, and then just kept passing it, and then eventually went back, and they recycled possession and kept passing it around, and whatever, this attack just doesn't look right. And I'm really starting to think it is a coaching issue now. That whatever idea, either the idea is rubbish and the players are executing it well, but the idea is rubbish, or the idea is nice on paper, but either we don't have the players to execute it or the players are executing it badly. It's probably a combination of all of that, but I just think at some point you have to make the best out of the attacking players you have. We've got decent enough players now. We've got players like Saka, we've got players like Smith Rowe, Pepe, who, sometimes looks really good in this system, but sometimes looks just absolutely awful in the system when he's dragged out wide on the touchline, getting doubled up on, and he just goes back inside again. And at some point, you just have to make the most out of what you have. And yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting because we just started talking about Pepe now, but it's taken 40 minutes of this podcast for us to mention his name. And in the context of reviewing this game, I don't know if that's actually a good thing or a bad thing, because obviously we've been talking about a lot of bad things that happened in the game. We lost, and maybe in theory he therefore didn't have a very bad game. But should we be looking for him, whatever the tactics may be, whatever the coaching issues may be, should we be looking for him to influence games more?
I thought this, but then I also realized that actually for the last year, not one attacking player has looked good in the system. Like Pepe hasn't looked good, Aubameyang hasn't good look, Lacazette, Martinelli, Balogun, Odegaard's come in, yes, but you can't really say that for the last 6 months that our attack has looked good with him in. And it depends if you want to look at it as a glass half full kind of person or a glass half empty kind of person. But if you look at it with a bit more of a negative slant, when was the last time you say our attack has looked good? There was that game, I think, against Prague in the Europa League where we scored a couple of goals. There were brief moments, but throughout the last 12 months, our attack has never looked good. And this is a lingering feeling that I just can't shake.
I mean, just on, I pretty much agree with that, Aaron. And just on Pepe, like, it was quite interesting because, again, the second half, when obviously we're the team that's supposed to move, the home team, but we're the team that's obviously chasing the game and should be taking the game to Chelsea as much as we can. Like Cedric had a really bad game. I thought he was really, really poor. There was times that he got the ball as we were pushing forward and he was like misplacing passes and he just didn't really look that comfortable. But it's quite interesting because you kind of think of Pepe as this player who you want to be playing on the last defender. If he hasn't got the ball, like you want him to be taking on the left back of the other team, or if he hasn't got the ball, you want him to be playing on the last defender where someone's slotting balls through into him for him to run onto. And when like he would get the ball wide, and if he couldn't beat his man, he'd play it back inside or he'd play it back to Cedric. And there were a couple of, I don't know if you noticed this, Aaron, there were a couple of guys sitting, I think, behind us or sort of to the left of us who kept kind of going at Pepe, as a lot of Arsenal fans do, saying, you've got to make the run, Pepe, you've got to make the run. And he wasn't making the run. He wasn't trying to make the run on the last man to for a through ball. And I think that was basically down to the fact that he was seeing who the ball was going to, and it was Cedric. And there's no way he's going to bother making that run because he knows he's not going to be on the end, like the ball's not going to make it to him. And I don't know if that's just a one-off thing, but if you think about who the other right backs are, Chambers, is he going to be making that kind of killer through ball pass? Probably not. And we saw like at the end of last season how like him and Ødegaard linked up quite well. And I guess that's maybe kind of a bit of a positive thing to potentially hold on to for when Ødegaard does come into this team, that, you know, you can kind of see that the 1-2s, Pepe receives the ball, plays it into Ødegaard, makes the run, and Ødegaard will pick that pass out. And maybe Ødegaard is the player that kind of links everything together, hopefully.
That's what we're banking on. We're banking on, at some point, this combination of first team players will come good as a combination. Because right now, as individuals, like Pepe, I agree with everything about Pepe, but at the same time, you can't have a player someone who's a senior player now in our squad who's so reliant on, I need this guy at right back, I need this guy as number 10 in order.
I don't think it's that. Maybe
function.
I don't know, mate. I mean, I think you could probably pick out a part. I don't know. I'd probably say there's probably 7 or 8 players yesterday who were pretty average.
Oh yeah, I think everyone was average. I think, but
I mean, like you could say, as in you could say the same about. I don't know, Aubameyang playing 20 minutes, half an hour, like, you know, he's relying on an Ødegaard in the team or an Ozil or a Cazorla or whatever. As in, you know, he's relying on those kinds of players to be feeding him because he's not really going to offer that much else otherwise, as we've said so many times. So I know what you mean. But I don't think
Pepe was the biggest problem yesterday. I think
no, he wasn't. I just thought it was
interesting. Probably, if anything.
Say again, sorry.
I think Pepe was probably one of our better players on the night. It's just. It's another symptom of this disjointed attack that we have so many. Like, I just don't know what the plan is. Like you said, I think Pepe is really good when he's on the last defender heading into the box. But when I see him drifting out into the touchline, all it takes is for a fullback and a winger to just double up on him, and he'll just go back inside, back to the fullback, and it will just go round and round again. And
I'm inclined to, almost going on Mize's point with, I think players do react quite often to the players who have got the ball. And I think Pepe is perhaps maybe yesterday a bit of a victim of having quite a frustrating game from the perception of what other players were doing. So there's a pro Pepe propaganda video that was doing the rounds on Twitter today, which is all his clips from the game. And it was showing how in all these clips, another player wasn't making the right run, or another player didn't make the right pass, or another player kind of was doing something which ultimately wasn't on the same level as Pepe. And that might be true. And it might well be true, but Aaron, and I think it's a fantastic point that you made a bit earlier, which is what attacking players look good in this system can we actually say has looked good in this system. So, I think there's clearly pervasive issues, and I think just moving on to looking forward a little bit, I think if you're someone who doesn't follow Arsenal, and if you just listen to everything that we had said over the last 45 minutes, you'd probably think that this team has got real problems. You probably think that this team's got real problems. A manager probably doesn't quite know what he's trying to do. And now if we look forward, we've got West Brom in the League Cup on Wednesday. We've got Man City on the weekend. How does he approach these games, guys? Because let's think about it this way. Let's say he gets knocked out against West Brom on Wednesday and he goes on to lose to Man City. What kind of energy is going to be around the club, inside the dressing room and in the stadium at that point? So how do you think all that's going to influence how he approaches? Let's just start with Wednesday.
I think, like Wednesday has now it's just become massive, hasn't it? It's like you said, Raj, if he loses that, I mean, you kind of have to assume, as sad as this is, again, how far we've fallen, you're going to have to assume Sundays you'll be playing Sunday, Saturday, whenever it is we play City.
Yeah.
That game's a no-hoper pretty much. But okay, let's just assume we lose that game. That just increases the importance of a League Cup game in the second round, where, again, going back 10, 15, 20 years, I don't think we've ever played in the second round, or we haven't for a long time. But, when we used to enter the League Cup, it was always, the type of team that we put out would be literally all of the kids. And now it's kind of like a lot of the kids are actually in our first team, and now we're going to the, So in terms of how he's going to have to approach it, I don't think he's going to be able to change it up too much. I think he's going to, obviously we're already limited by a lot of first team players being out.
Who do you think comes in?
Well, this is the interesting thing. The other interesting aspect or factor is the transfer window closes a few days after that, I guess. And there's a number of players that potentially he might want to play to put them in the shop window to almost, if there's a team that's, looking at some of these players like Nketiah and Maitland-Niles and Reece Nelson, if they have good games, then it might almost prompt some of these teams to kind of put the money on the table or whatever, come out to reach out to us with an offer. So he's got quite an interesting balancing act to manage here, because he absolutely can't lose now. Like, yeah, I think it's starting to turn. It is starting to turn. Like, you could tell from the crowd yesterday, there were boos at halftime, there were boos at full time. It wasn't as bad as it was at the end of the Wenger era, when it got really toxic.
Well,
it wasn't as bad.
The Emery
as
era
that.
got really toxic as well.
And the Emery era, yeah. It wasn't as bad as that, but like, yeah, it is starting to turn. It is starting to turn. And I mean, I guess he's kind of, I say he, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I guess Arteta's a little bit lucky. The fact that, it's West Brom away, it's City away, and then I think it's a international break.
Yeah.
So even if he does lose those two games from a kind of fan reaction perspective, he won't have to face, like, it's not going to be, neither of those games are at home. So but,
I mean, if we lose to West Brom away, regardless, that is.
No, it is. But I'm saying,
crisis,
is in like,
right?
So if West Brom was at home on Wednesday and we lose that, it's a very different reaction from the crowd than it is if us playing away, right?
Okay.
So that's So and then you've got the international break. I think a lot of Arsenal fans have already written the City game off. So if a lot of fans have written the Chelsea game off, probably all of them have written the City game off. So yeah, like I said, massive game. Not even because of the actual tie itself in terms of what we achieved by winning that game. It's just a massive game for Arteta. Does he get the team selection right? Does he get the performance? Do we score a goal? Do we create a chance?
Well, we haven't scored a goal this season yet. And I guess a question to you guys is, and this would be some story, wouldn't it? Is there any chance, do you think, that Arteta could get sacked by Man City and Pep Guardiola?
No.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. Unless we lose to West Brom.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I think
that's what I'm assuming.
We're in this weird period now, actually, where the performance actually matters more than the results. Because
I don't think it does, mate. Personally, sorry, not to interrupt. I don't think it does. I think when you're like, So we spoke about this last episode. At the start of the season, he was, I think, fourth favorite Premier League manager to be sacked, and I think after we lost to Brentford, he was like first or second favorite. I don't know where he is now. I haven't checked, but the pressure's ramping up. If not, it's ramped up already.
Yeah, I get. So what I meant is, like, put it this way, right? Let's say we play really badly against West Brom, but scrape a 1-0 win, right? We lose to City, and then we've got Norwich, Burnley, Spurs, right? Let's just say it's more of the same with same players, but new players. The first team come back, but it's the same dull kind of like pass, boring football. But we win, we scrape a 2-1 win or scrape a 1-0 win. We score with the only chance of the game against Norwich. Yeah. Okay, yeah, score with the only chance of the game against Burnley, or score from a set piece or something. And then let's say we lose to Spurs. I think on that basis, if we're still not creating chances, if we're still not attacking properly, if we're still not excited by the way watching Arsenal play, that to me is more sackable than if we lose hypothetically 5-4 to Norwich and we lose 5-4 to Burnley and like are playing brilliant free-flowing attacking football finally.
Well, no, but then, mate, that's like saying if we go to City and we win 1-0, scoring off a
City
a penalty,
a free hit. I think.
But let's say we play City, Norwich, Burnley, and Spurs. We play terribly in all of those games. We end up with 20, 30, 40% possession. We get completely dominated, and we manage to score like freak goals or whatever from a set piece, a penalty, and we win all 4 games. Arteta's safe. He's fine. Is he though? Is it? Well, are they gonna sack him after winning those 4 games? They're not, right? They're not. And even if he didn't win them, but we got good results out of them, but despite being bad performances, I think
fair enough. They probably don't. They're almost definitely not going to sack him, but the pressure is still going to be on, right? Like,
no, I think it. Personally, I don't think so. I think he's at the point now where he needs, like, it's like the West Brom game, right? We could play terribly, but as long as we win that game, it's not like the pressure's off, but it gets paused until probably the next kind of you go past the City game and past the international break. It gets paused to Norwich, and I think Norwich is massive because it's back at home. The fans are going to turn up to that one. It's not going to be like yesterday where you kind of come in with a bit of trepidation and you're not really sure. And we were all between the four of us, we all predicted opposite results basically, right? Draws, wins, losses. So I think you go into the Norwich game, when we do our predictions for Norwich, I would like to think all four of us are going to predict wins. If he doesn't win that one, then I think, performance good or not, I think
no, but I guess my point is, even if we win at 1-0, like what he needs is performances as well as results, I guess. Like if we win against Norwich and it's just really the football and the attack is not good and that continues, the pressure's not going to go away. I think what we want now is to see this plan start to come together, right? What we want is, this is a vision. What is the vision? And if
I kind of look at,
1-0 wins.
Not to labor on the point, I guess, but like I guess I look at it a bit differently, where it's now a case of get the results, get the points to almost secure your position, and then you start to build in the performances where the morale's up because you've started climbing the table. You can start scoring some goals, and things are starting to look up. Wins change everything. Like goals will change everything. Wins will change everything. And I know what you mean. Ideally, we want the performances to come, and then the goals will come, and then the wins will come. I'm not sure it's going to necessarily work like that. But I think either way, like we were saying, I don't know about you, Aaron. Do you think Wednesday is like massive?
It's must win. He can't. If he loses, then it's a very, very different question.
They're top of the championship, aren't they? It's not like a.
It's still West Brom away in the League Cup.
I know, but I'm saying is in when you talk about the kind of teams that you want to play in a situation like this, is probably not the
you'd rather
the
like
ideal game.
Yeah,
right?
You'd rather like Norwich at home, to be honest, than West Brom away. But
in terms of results, in terms of performances, my personal opinion is I think you're actually both right on this, because I think if we take a step back, it feels like the board have backed an Arteta and Edu vision over the last few windows. There is no one that, for as much criticisms as we can give the Cronkies, there is no one that can turn around and say they've not been financially backed over the last number of windows. And it feels to me like they will give Arteta as many reasons as they can to not fire him. And I think if he gets results, I think they won't fire him, because even if the performance
I don't think he will be fired, but I guess the question is, should he be fired?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So should he be as different? I don't think they will. And I think if performances are good, and say if we're still not getting all the results, if the performances are good, we're creating chances, they may look at it and they might go, okay, look, this vision that we've backed, these players that we've got on, Odegaard was seemingly a real big Arteta, high on the Arteta wish list. I think they'll probably say, look, we've got to give this guy every chance to get a return on our money, basically. Otherwise, we don't want to risk bringing in another manager who's going to turn around and go, I bloody don't like any of these players, which I think they've somewhat mitigated for by signing young players. I think they'll turn around and go, no, you have to grow these players and you have to develop them. But I think it is a bit of a precarious situation. I think ultimately the board will try and do whatever they can to not sack Arteta. But I think it's a good point. If we now move on to the should, and I guess we can almost wrap up with this. In your opinion, as an Arsenal fan, in both your opinions, as Arsenal season ticket holders, what do you think should happen? Should he get sacked if he does not get a certain amount of points from the next number of games? Or should he be sacked if we are not performing, as in playing a certain way?
It depends how long. It's a question of how long, rather than like if we get to December, and we're still hovering around the bottom half of the table, then absolutely.
Personally, so you'd give it till you.
No, I wouldn't. Personally, I think I would give him till Spurs.
Right.
You've got West Brom, City, like you said, is a write-off. I want to see a team when we play Spurs at home in the derby that is completely committed to whatever plan this is that Arteta is building, to execute his game plan, and for it to come good. And I hope it does come good, because I still really like Arteta. But by that point, you have no excuses for saying, we're 6 games in or whatever. This is your team. Yeah, you have injuries. Hopefully it won't be as bad as it is now. But 1 or 2 injuries, every team has 1 or 2 injuries. Regardless, go out and beat a team who are no better than us, man for man. And before that, show that you can beat Norwich, show you can beat Burnley, and show that we're actually on track to actually building towards something. Because I can back that. What I can't back is a feeling that we're going backwards or a feeling that we're standing still.
I agree with you. What do you think, Mice?
Yeah, similar thoughts, I think. I potentially give him a bit longer than Spurs. Just because I think it's mainly because, like you said, Aaron, I quite like him. I think there is a bit of a just affection because he's an ex-player, ex-captain, and all of that. So he kind of gets a bit of good grace on that basis. And I think also, as Arsenal fans, we've of the age that we are, we've been brought up on basically just one manager, pretty much. And it's nice to stick by your manager. So I would like to think we'd give him a little bit longer than, was it 6 or 7 games into the season, even if things are not looking great. I mean, look, if he loses all of the games up until Spurs and loses Spurs, I don't think there's a hope in hell for him. But I think we might give him a bit longer than that, even if the results aren't great. But I don't think it's going to. Yeah, I mean, like from how badly last season was in terms of the first half, which basically ruined the rest of the season and handicapped us for the second half, despite how good the second half was, and we climbed the table and we were pushing for sort of top 6. I don't think they're going to let that happen again. I guess the only caveat to that is like you said, Raj, they've really heavily backed him. They've really heavily invested in his and Edu's targets. So unless there is like a Conte, just pulling that name out there, is probably the most qualified guy to come in and sort this all out. And he just says, yeah, I'm happy to work with what I've got. We'll wait till the summer window next year for some more investment. Unless he's just there, ready to join, and ready to take over. They've also got to look at, there's no point sacking him with no other plan. We can't go down the route that we've gone down with this kind of project manager. Or you potentially can, but you know what I mean? Like it was his first managerial job. They can't do that again. So if they're going to sack him, they need to have the next appointment lined up and ready to go. And it needs to be a guy that's, fully qualified, basically. So I think they've got that to consider as well. And if the timing's not right, if Conte's got something else lined up, and I don't know who the other managers are, Brendan Rodgers has been mentioned. If these guys are all saying no, then maybe it doesn't make sense to sack him, even if we aren't doing that great. Yeah.
It's interesting that because so I agree with that thought process. I personally think it's madness to sack a manager unless you've got someone else lined up who you think is going to do better. I mean, it's like saying if you're on a plane and if you don't like how the pilot is flying the plane, you don't kick the pilot out the plane unless you figured out someone else can fly the damn thing. Do you know what I mean? Right? In the same way. But there's people who don't agree with that. There's people who say that shouldn't be a reason for not sacking a manager. They say that if the manager's not doing the job that you need them to, you sack the manager and then you look out there, because it might be a case where once you sack the manager, a chain reaction happens, or someone goes, "Oh, hang on, the Arsenal job's actually available." I'm keen on.
But there are ways of doing that. If you're going to sack Arteta, I think smart business people can put feelers out in advance, right?
I'd be very surprised if it happens that way.
Chelsea did that, right? Chelsea did that with Tuchel, right? They knew they were going to sack Lampard. And then Tuchel became, they were definitely sending out feelers beforehand.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think unless you have really good faith in your number 2, it's a big risk unless you have someone lined up, because you do what Spurs have done and end up with Nuno Espirito Santo, which I'm sure no Spurs fans actually wanted.
Well, he's won 2-2, so not too unhappy at the moment, I guess.
Exactly.
With no Harry Kane, pretty much. So, yeah.
I'm going to eat my words soon.
So, guys, look, I think we'll wrap it. Just before we wrap up, just to conclude, I guess, by the next time we record our next podcast, the transfer window is going to be shut. We can perhaps do a little review of the window. But in terms of remaining activity, yes, there might be some outgoings. We can see Nketiah's linked with Palace. We can see Kolasinac, I think, is on his way to Fenerbahce, Lucas Torreira to Fiorentina. Realistically, some of the other guys, Nelson, Maitland-Niles, etc., we don't know. Willian, we don't know if anything's going to happen. So let's not even bother trying to guess. But in terms of incomings or any other maybe notable outgoings, like an Aubameyang or something, do you think anything like that's going to happen?
We were talking about this, weren't we, Aaron? And after the game yesterday, you asked me the question.
It would be nice just to have one surprise, wouldn't it?
A surprise exit.
Yeah, a surprise incoming.
Incoming. Okay.
I mean, exit would be great if we could get all of those players out. I saw some rumors just now about Willian and Torreira having offers made for them, but I think it's all speculation still. Yeah, it would be nice. Another midfielder. I think Lukonga's great, but I think defensively Lukonga's still a bit suspect in my opinion. We can't really rely on him. Like, I don't know. Even if like Partey and Xhaka just doesn't really excite me. So I'd love another central midfielder.
Do you see it happening? Do you see it happen?
No, I don't see us doing anything. Is my short answer. But I still think there are two or three key positions that we need to sort out.
What about you, Mice? Do you see anything happening?
Yeah, just saying. So, Aaron and you, we had a chat about this after the game, didn't we? And yeah, I think I said central midfield. You know, it would be kind of like a dream if we could get a partner for Partey. Realistically, I don't see that happening unless there's some major outgoings. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to depend on outgoings and funds. And I mean, let's just say hypothetically, someone comes in for Aubameyang and we sort of take the money and get him off the wage book, which I don't think would be a great move. But you know, if they bring it, then they're obviously going to have to bring in a striker. But I mean, I don't know. It's a weird one because right back seems to be this very key position that we were looking to strengthen, and we've still got 4 right backs on the books. So again, you can't really see that happening. I think the one, if it does happen, it might just be central midfield. But there's no point in buying like another Lukonga type of play, and I don't mean his style of play. I mean that age, kind of, you know, very young, kind of inexperienced guy who's going to be very good in the next couple of years, but is not ready to play 40 games a season or 30 games a season or whatever. So, and that kind of player in central midfield is probably going to cost you Thomas Partey money. So it's going to depend on outgoings. So unless there's some sort of like flurry of activity between now and in the next few days, then I can't really see anyone else.
I do think whoever comes in will probably have to be a little bit more experienced as well. Yeah. I think we've got a lot of, like, I think their strategy of buying 23-year-olds is great, but I wonder if you're throwing in another 22, 21-year-old right back in, or another 21-year-old striker into a very inexperienced team, it would be, it's probably even more reason why it's even harder to do. But, you know, finding a 26, 27-year-old and putting them in that team who can contribute now would be very, very helpful.
The one big one that I think might happen, and I'm not really basing this on anything apart from sort of stuff I've seen on Twitter, is Bellerin leaving. Like, I think someone might come in for him because he's clearly like, it's just mental that he didn't start the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. And when Chambers came off the other day against Brentford, it was Tavares that came on. So he's like, not just out of favor. It's, you know, he's not even 4th choice right back, which is pretty crazy. So, and, you know, he's an asset that's sitting on our books, probably on fairly decent wages and could generate some funds. And even if it is, you know, 12 months ago, we were probably saying 20, 25 million for Bellerin. And now we're probably saying we'll take 10. I don't know, but you guys, we know, you know, it's realistic. That's what probably the number that's probably going to kind of come in. And I think the club might look at that and just say, yeah, because he's completely surplus to requirements. And obviously he wants to go as well. So that might be one that, you know, you get some funds in from there and it might trigger something. And there was links with, Trippier, wasn't there? There was a links about a swap deal with Trippier, which would be a really odd. I'd find that really odd, to be honest. I'd be quite happy with it.
A permanent swap deal, or I read like a loan swap deal or something like that, like a 1-year swap, and then they just swap back. Which sounds kind of crazy.
That'd be a bit random.
I mean, if it's for a year, I think we can make it work. But anything more permanent seems a bit risky.
Okay, guys. Well, I think we'll wrap up there. So I think, as I said, the next time we're going to speak, because Miles, you're going off on a little bit of a jolly, aren't you, to Spain?
It's not hardly a jolly, mate. Family holiday to Spain. I'm off. I'm going to be away for the West Brom game and the City game. So I don't know whether to just not watch them.
Do that.
And just turn everything off. No, to be fair, I don't know if I'll be able to watch West Brom. Right?
What's that? It's basically what Raj does now anyway.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to watch West Brom game. So, but City will obviously be, I can catch it in a pub. So I'm definitely going to watch that. Okay. Yes, I guess we'll be chatting after the City game at some point, right?
We're chatting after the City game. A lot could be different. The window's going to be closed. It'll be very interesting to see how we feel in our next podcast. But no, look, thanks everyone for tuning in. As always, we really, really appreciate your support. And I hope I've got some more American viewers like roped into to this podcast. I was advertising this a lot in Antigua, and there's a lot of Americans who were there. So, but they, as I mentioned to you guys, they did keep thinking that we were called the arseholes. So let's hope they find the right podcast. But
YouTube channel.
Exactly. Otherwise, they might find some really interesting stuff, and they might be into that as well. I mean, I don't know, but anyway, cool. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Well done on
hosting,
mate. You've done a very good job.
I'm sort of sweating a bit. Do you know what I mean? It's quite hard work. I had enough respect for you guys, respect, man.
Excellent.
One day I'll get to your level. One day, but all good. All right. Thank you, everyone, and take care. And we'll speak to you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
See you later.